Old World Wednesday, and we are still very much on the Cathay hype train. Like I promised you guys previously, I'm now going to focus on the Jade Warriors for this particular video, and I'm going to give you 3 schemes on how to paint them. 2 are a little bit more kind of in-depth. They're easy to do, but they will take a little bit of time. And then there's one that only requires 3 paints and takes about 10 seconds to paint, and it actually looks really, really good. So if you're excited to see that, stick around guys and enjoy this video. Okay, so these are the 3 Cathay and Jade Warrior miniatures that I've decided to use for this video because I have 30 models, 30 Jade Warrior models, 3 sets of 10, and I built a squad of 28. That means I can build 3 sergeants, and I only need 1 of them to go in the unit, so the other 2 can be spare. So basically the nicest model that I get from today's video will become the champion of my actual squad and will be what I continue to paint the rest of my army as. The first one got sprayed black and then got sprayed with a light grey overcoat, and that is to help adhere with contrast. This is going to be the easiest way of painting Jade Warriors you have ever seen. You will not believe it. All we do is apply a single coat of Gore Grunta fur across the entire miniature. Have a little bit of brush control, don't slop it on because it'll dry all weird. All you're looking for is a nice controlled coat of contrast. These models are absolutely brimming with details, and the contrast really does make them pop. Because they already have the precedent for Jade models in the army, i.e. the Jade Sentinel, you can imagine them having entire Jade armies, and that's what this scheme is all about. From here, I used Dark Earth texture paste from AK Interactive and did a coat across the base with that. When that was fully dry, both the contrast and the texture paint, it was time to dry brush. So I grabbed Rise of Rust, which may seem like a bizarre choice. Just stick with me, I promise you. Give me a couple more minutes and you will be shocked at how good this model looks. Rise of Rust, dry brush it all across the base and all across the Jade Warrior himself. I'm using some of the Artist Opus dry brushes for this. The stiff bristles and the multiple sizes make it really easy for me to get in amongst all the different parts if I need to, which might be really useful for some other models if I decide to go the Jade Warrior route further down the line. So like I said, take your time and dry brush the entire model with this color. Kind of like a medium dry brush. You want to get most of the model looking slightly orange. You don't want to go too heavy and clog any details, but you just want to make all the details pop out. After that, we are going to grab a Ushabti bone, and we are going to basically do exactly the same thing we just did, but very lightly. We're going to very lightly dry brush up the base, and then very lightly dry brush up the Jade Warrior himself. You want to leave behind not as much paint, it's just to catch the very sharp edges and sharp details of the model. I think it pushes it beautifully into the terracotta tone, and gives you an absolutely stellar result for the model. All we did from here is we added some black paint around the rim of the base. 2 thin coats is what I use for this. I don't want to add any kind of blobby black paint around the rims. So I like to go for nice, thin, watered down paint. 2 coats as I go around. By the time I've kind of done the 4th side, I'm ready to go back to the 1st side and put the 2nd coat on anyway, especially in this heat. Absolutely sweltering. And having to turn off all of my fans and everything to record the audio for this video, you've no idea how much I sacrifice for you guys. This is genuinely dangerous heat in the studio right now. So yeah, after that, I just add some grass tufts and some flowers, anything you want to do for the base to add a little bit of extra detail. Normally, I'm just going to go with grass. Because these guys don't have a lot of color on the actual miniatures, I added some thicker grass tufts and then some flowers. And when they were glued on and everything was dry, we were finished with our first Jade Warrior done in the Terracotta scheme. And I must say, I think this guy looks absolutely incredible for the amount of effort that we put in. And considering by contrast, the amount of effort you have to put in to paint any of the other schemes is actually quite vast, the Terracotta scheme really does seem a lot more attractive. Okay, the second model was sprayed black and then sprayed lead belcher. Now, in hindsight, I thought this guy had a lot more metallic than he did, with the kind of dragon scale mail that he has on his armor and the big blade. So I thought I could test one of them out doing silver tones. I think it was a mistake. You'll notice when I do the last one, it will be black and then gray again. If I could go back and redo this part, I would have sprayed this model gray as well, and then done exactly the same coats as before. Now, as you can see, I'm just going to be starting to throw on the base coats for this miniature. And while I am throwing on those base coats, I am going to do that part of the video that I really do have to do if I'm going to achieve any amount of success in this field. I know it's the bit that bores you guys to death, but it is very important. That is, of course, to remind you guys that if you're enjoying this video, please do give it a like. Make sure you're commenting down below if you have any questions, and please do make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Those 3 things cost you nothing, but they make all the difference as to how many people see these videos and how quickly the channel grows. If you want to help support the channel even further, there's a number of nice and easy ways to do that. Namely, a Patreon campaign, linked down below. You can become a YouTube channel member, linked down below. With both of those, you get access to a private Discord server, and you get an extra video every single week just for you guys, which I think are 2 awesome benefits. Also, if you purchase a lot of miniatures and you want to save yourself some money, I have links down below for Element Games. If you're in the United Kingdom, you get kind of 20% off new releases and kind of 15% off all other hobby, which is really cool. And if you purchase anything after using my link below, the channel will get a nice little kickback. And then I've got a link down below for my hobby place as well, which is if you're outside the UK but inside of Europe, and it does exactly the same thing as the Element Game link. Saves you a ton of money, and the channel gets a nice little kickback. Right, that's the last bits that I need to tell you. I do apologize having to do those in every video, but it is quite important. Okay, you will notice that I have thrown a bunch of contrast paint on this guy to base coat him in. Terracotta turquoise for the blue, corn red for the red cloth, Gorgonta fur for the kind of leather strapping and banding that exists around his armor, kind of that armor trim parts. We're now going to move on to Black Templar, and that's going to be for kind of the belts that go around his waist. Obviously, there's one that kind of swoops down over one of his legs. And then if you want to go the extra mile, there's things like the little straps that hold on his greaves and his, it's like bicep armor, if you will. And then the handle of his beautiful Cathay Great Blade is going to get done with a coat of black as well. You can do his boots in black as well at this point, and then black hair as well. So take your time, go around, try and find all those correct pieces that you want to use. That should be black. I actually went to the Cathayan Battle Force box on the Games Workshop website and scrolled through the images on that until this model painted in this scheme was on the screen. And then I just kind of copy it along with where kind of certain colors should go. Like I said, I think a bunch of these colors would have popped a little bit more if it was in that gray scheme. The silver is swallowing the colors up just a little bit. Retributor Armor Gold was then introduced for all of the gold trim, i.e. his big, beautiful dragon shoulder pad, his crossguard, and pommel of his sword. And there's a bunch of other little details in there. These are quite ornate models. So like I said, go to that reference picture I talked about before and try and find all the little details that are supposed to be gold and use Retributor Armor as the base coat. After that, we're going to move on to Dark Oath Flesh and just do a quick base coat on the model's face and hands with that to just get the skin tone started off on this model. With those fully dry, it's time to shade the model down. I went for a null and oil. I really wanted to darken the model down a little bit and have a really nice kind of starting point for the layering process. Once again, I think the black over the silver was quite jarring. I think it would have looked nicer over the model if it was sprayed grey. Like I said, I do the last model in grey, and you will see the difference when I throw the base coats on that model, how much sharper it looks and how much I think the tones work a little bit better. Having said that, we're not at a bad place to begin the layering of this model, and when he is layered up, he does look pretty cool. I also finished off the base while I was waiting for the rest of the kind of the shade to dry. It was exactly the same as the model at the beginning. So the one I showed you with the Jade Warrior in the, I can't remember the name of Jade Warrior, sorry. That Jade scheme, the same base comb as him. Catachan flesh was then quickly used for layering up the brown section. So once again, that's like the trim that goes around his armor. All those leather sections are going to get done with a very quick coat of Catachan flesh. I think the heat is actually starting to affect my memory for color names, and I'm starting to kind of slur my words a little bit. So if I pass out now and you hear a loud thunk, that was me hitting my head on the desk. So just be aware of that sound. Okay, with the brown all blocked in, it's time to start working up that red. So we're going to start with Mephiston red. We're going to very carefully layer up those details, which because of the black wash and because we started with a darker contrast and we washed it down, it's not that kind of poppy. It's really hard to see where the red is here in this video. But once I layer it up, you can see that pop of red really show through with that kind of skirt that goes around underneath his armor. You can see that on like his armpits, and it goes down the inner parts of his arm. And it does really help with that pop of kind of secondary color on the model. After that, we're going to jump up with the red again. We're going to hit it with Evil Sun Scarlet and basically do exactly the same thing we just did. We're just going to go lighter and a little bit tighter. So where the last one was kind of the mid-tone, this is the final highlight of the red to make it really pop. Okay, with the red all highlighted, it's now time to work up on those blue sections, kind of turquoisey sections. So for this, we're going to start with SoTech Green. Always is more of a blue to me, but that's neither here nor there. And we're going to layer up all of that kind of colorful ribbon and cloth that exists on him. So obviously it runs down the front. His belt around his midriff, the center of it is black, but it has that same coloring kind of spilling over the top and bottom of it. The trim on his armor is all done in that same blue, and then the sash running up his chest. Also, the little kind of hair band thingy that holds that glorious top knot up is done in that color as well. So it really does mean you just got to take your time and find all those correct parts of the model that are that green and just give them a nice layer. When that's done, we are going to jump up to another bright blue color for the final highlight of this. This time we're going to push it more towards the turquoise thing. So we're going to go for Temple Guard blue for that. And once again, we're going to do exactly the same step we just did, but like before with the red, we're just going to be very light as this is the final highlight. We just want to catch those sharp edges and any of the really high points on those kind of colors. Give them a quick highlight. This is a very quick step, but it really does make that color pop. And as you can see with that highlighter, it really has made a huge difference to the look of this model. Going in for Ironbreaker as the highlight color for all metallics across this model. That does mean going in on those scale mail sections and highlighting each panel, which will take a little bit of time, not a lot of time. And then after this, we are going to highlight things like his big blade. And then of course, all of the gold detail as well are going to get highlighted, including the awesome dragon kind of shoulder pad that he has. Just need to take your time and make sure not to overdo it on the gold with the silver. As you can see, as I'm doing here, I've gone from kind of brush strokes to more of a kind of a stabbing technique, just leaving small dots of silver behind on some of the sharper points and more angular sections of the gold. After this, we're going to start working up his face. So obviously the face is not standard Caucasian skin, so I'm a little bit stumped as to the correct way to paint this. I should have really done a bit more research. I figured what I would do is I would go for Kislev flesh, which is kind of usually the final highlight of painting. It's quite pale and quite pallid. I would do a kind of a layer job with that. Then I'm going to add some Berserker Bloodshade that is thinned down with a touch of water over the top of that to basically warm it up a little bit, give it a little bit of life. And then when I go into the final highlight, I'm just going to hit it with Kislev flesh again, but just very kind of sharp details. So the nose, eyebrows, tops of the cheeks, a little bit on the forehead. And that's all I'm going to do for this particular skin. Same process I'm going to do for the hands on the model. With that done, I'm going to call this guy complete. I think he turned out really nice. Despite the hiccup of the wrong color spray used, I still think it's a very attractive looking scheme for your Jade Warriors. And if anyone bothered and painted their Cathay army in that scheme, I don't think they'd regret it. Now we're moving on to the third, final, and my favorite scheme of the three. You will see why in a moment. Now, I'm going to overemphasize the beginning part here because this model is sprayed black, then sprayed gray. Then I went in with silver. So if you could go back to the previous scheme we did, you would do exactly the same steps as here. Just when you finish the silver, you would then go into the first step on that model, and I think you would have a better result. So as you can see, the step that I'm doing in here is blocking in the silver. Instead of using the silver spray to do this, I'm using a fine pointed brush and then going in. So I've got to paint all of that scale mail that is like kind of the most under part of detail, if that makes sense, across the model, his blade, and any other metallic parts that you think are on the model that need to be done in silver. From here, we're going to move over to Black Templar, and where we did the Gorgon to fur on the previous one, which is all of that trim that goes around the kind of dragon scale armor, we're going to hit that with black. The two primary colors on this particular scheme is orange and black, which if you guys watch a lot of my videos, you know I've done on a bunch of different models before. It's looked great on my Bretonnians. My Dogs of War army is looking incredible with that scheme. I've even done it on a Space Marine, and that works fantastic. And I really did think that it would pass for a really nice scheme for these guys. There's even a particular kind of branch of Cathay which does use a orange and black scheme. So it actually does fit in with the cannon as well. Obviously, we did the hair and the handle of a sword in black as well. If it would ever focus, you can see what I've done. From here, we are going to go into that Griffhound orange and apply this to the model. So unlike the previous model where we had two different colors of fabric, we had the red on the bottom and then his big sash and stuff was done in blue. All of that is going to be done in orange. I want the orange to have as much kind of prominence as possible on the model. That's why I did all the trim on the model black, so that I could give the more of the real estate of the model to orange. And already at this stage, I realized that this was going to be something quite special and it was going to look awesome. Once again, a dark oath flesh was used to base coat in the skin and hands of this model. And because we didn't start with a silver base coat, they look way better over the light gray tone of the spray. From here, Retributor Armor Gold was used for exactly the same steps as the previous scheme. So that beautiful dragon symbol across his shoulder pad. And because we did a bunch of his actual armor panels in silver, I just left the kind of elbow guard, shoulder pad, and some of the other details blank for use in gold. So it would stand out. I did not want to do all of the trim of every single panel in gold. I thought that would be a little bit too gaudy. And gold next to orange, it's kind of, you know, same kind of tone, so I wanted to avoid that a little bit. Okay, with all of the gold in place, the model is looking particularly cool. Now what I'm going to do now is shade the model, and the shade I've decided to go for is Reikland Flesh Shade, and I'm going to apply this on the entire model head to toe. It's the same color I use whenever I'm painting this orange and black scheme, and it really does complement all the other areas, and it works perfectly. And as you can see, it really does do a fantastic job of getting in all of those kind of crevices and shadow areas and add a really nice kind of sheen to the model. Sheen is probably the wrong word there, but you bear with me. Okay, with the shade fully dry and the basing done just like the previous model, it's time to start layering it. So for this, I'm going to go for Rust Orange, Fanatic Orange, and Orange Flare from the Too Thin Coats range of paints. This is what I like to do when I'm painting my orange. The colors are fantastic and I really enjoy using them. There is equivalent Games Workshop and Army Painter colors. So if you are following along with this particular guide and you don't want to use the Too Thin Coats range, like I said, you can go to the conversion guide and check out what colors these represent in the other two ranges and use those. I find the coverage is really good on these, and the layering job just looks so crisp and clean and really pops if you follow their specific triad they've set down. So I'm going to take my time with this and like really just make it pop and look nice. Orange is obviously the most primary color on the model, so that's where I'm going to devote the most of my attention to. Here I am going in with the second color of orange. Obviously less and less highlighting as you go, sharper edges. I'm holding my breath again watching me paint the sections, just like I did when I was actually painting it, which is kind of funny. As you can see, my highlight style can vary from brush strokes to actually just little kind of touchy scratchy brush strokes on certain areas. And I think it does really help and make it pop. Here I go in with that third layer of orange, which really does make it pop. It really makes the orange stand out. Now, I'm going to go to a little bit of a rant now. I've talked about this a little bit with these miniatures already, which is that I believe they were kind of designed in CAD or something like, you know, they weren't designed by a sculptor as such, which means that they're inundated with so much detail that I don't think there was any thought gone into like a painter having to paint an army of them, because I love this orange and black scheme, and when you see it when it's fully done, it looks absolutely incredible. But if you're going to go away and tell me that I have to paint kind of 60 Jade Warriors up in this scheme, I do not know who has the patience and inclination to go away and do that. I would love to. Honestly, I would love to do this scheme over and over again and just get that result. I don't know where you would find the time. The Jade scheme at the beginning, Terracotta scheme, sorry, at the beginning of this video is looking more and more attractive for just bulking out the army and then using splashes of color for things like characters, the balloon, maybe the artillery crew won't be made of terracotta, but the cannon itself will be. And then you can focus on those things and really kind of put your heart and soul into painting them. And then maybe the rest of the infantry is done in terracotta. I would love to know what your thoughts and feelings are on this. Like I said, I don't dislike them at all. I think they're too nice is the problem. can you imagine an entire army painted like this? But I would have to devote a year of my time to that and nothing else, which is just such an unrealistic thing to ask of a lot of hobbyists right now. So yeah, at least that's how I feel. Okay, going in back in with that Ironbreaker color and highlighting once again all those silver and all those gold areas. We also use Corvus Black to highlight all those black areas as well, just to make them pop. Exactly the same steps were taken with the skin, Kislev Flesh, a little bit of Berserker Bloodshade over the top of that thin down, and then a final highlight of, once again, Kislev Flesh. Really does help make that skin tone kind of pop, and I think it really works. And with that, we have our finished orange and black scheme. Like I said, it is by far my favorite scheme of the three. It is absolutely beautiful. I haven't ruled out the fact that I may attempt to do this on more of the models in the near future. Like I said, this guy is going to be the leader of a block of 28 models. Maybe if I can just get those 28 done, it will encourage me to do more. You never know. Here's a couple of still images to give you guys an example of what these models look like close up. Like I said, the Terracotta one looks fantastic. The traditional Jade Warrior scheme that they give kind of for the box art looks really good. But for me, like I said, this orange scheme really does steal the show. I'd love to know your thoughts on which one of the three is your favorite. If you're going to follow along with any of these steps, which one will it be? And is there any other color schemes for the Cathay Warriors out there that you would like me to attempt? Maybe I can get another video for you guys very soon. Thank you guys so much for sticking around at the end. I'll see you in the next one.